Hi there. This is my immediate reaction video for House of the Dragon Season 1, Episode 3, Second of His Name. Now, the way this works is this is the immediate reaction, get it out same day, quickly as possible, but I see it as sort of a trailer for through the coming week I'll make more deep dive videos, deep analysis, topical videos rest of the week, so stick around for those. I have quite a list of them from this one. But for the immediate reaction, I try to focus on the top 7 points I got from the new episode, because 7 is a good number. So diving right into that, number 1, wow, an episode with themes and symbolism. Because right at the beginning of the inside the episode, Ryan Condal, the new showrunner, says, the theme of this episode is leaving childhood behind. And Sapochnik reiterates that the theme is, that they told more than one person this, that the theme is childhood's end, that each of the major characters goes through a crucible of some kind where they're forced to, address their issues and come out the other side, that Rhaenyra is dealing with, that for a while they're overlooking her as the heir, Viserys is dealing with his doubt of, was I right to name her the heir because now I have a son, Alicent is forced to leave behind the innocence of that she could still be friends with Rhaenyra, that even though he's self-serving, Otto points out, no matter what happens, some people are going to push for Aegon to be king, and you can't escape this, and you need to start thinking politically. And Daemon, he's kind of, I wouldn't say wastrel, but he's been the rogue prince, he's been goofing around, he's been filled with doubt of, oh, I'm not the heir anymore, who am I? And now he's been reforged on the battlefield. He's regained his confidence. He's the rogue prince. He's this devil-may-care maverick, and he'll be like this for the rest of the story. So, yeah, that's a theme that covers all the major characters. Contrast this with the old showrunners. Infamously, they flippantly said, oh, themes are for 8th grade book reports. And what bothered me most about that is, that the news media still continued to praise them after they were saying ridiculous stuff like that. That just the way that they say it in a charismatic, fun way, and this is a joke. I remember that, from the Austin Film Fest thing, the live feeder pointed out, the things he's saying are really ridiculous and stupid, if not offensive, and he just says them in a friendly way, that they're for 8th grade book reports. That isn't a season 8 quote. He said that a while ago. And it's a major literary adaptation, that there's comparisons, but I don't think they're fair comparisons between this and Lord of the Rings, but it came to the point where we don't need a book. I guess it's literature. That you ignored the books and then you're surprised when season 8 happened because he could put the guy who doesn't believe in themes in charge because he's a child. He's this bratty teenager guy going, those are for 8th grade book reports. I thought you were a novelist. And related to that, the symbolism, more than one person has pointed this out, but it brings it up that the white stag, the white hart, the symbol of royalty, that isn't even in the books. But it's from Arthurian myth, it's from Celtic myth. Well, this leaked out early, so I made a longer video talking about, which I'm going to remake now with more footage from this, that white harts is a symbol of royalty in the Kingswood. That's from the main novels. The Robert Baratheon tries to hunt one and fails in the first book. So it's not entirely invention, but they move it to these characters because, it's an outline that we have for this prequel. So I thought that was great. Unlike the White Walker thing, where you can kind of see the argument that, we need to tie it into the prophecy of the White Walkers, they did not need to do this white hart thing at all. They could have easily skipped that, and it would have been basically the same episode. But it adds so much more to it that, from the Austin Film Fest thing, Benioff and Weiss said, we intentionally took out as much magic and prophecy as possible to appeal to football players and soccer moms, a general audience. And you intentionally gutted the story of those elements. And I'm not even big on prophecy and spiritual stuff in that, but that's a different aspect of the books. That's a different part of the fandom that really does appreciate it. And the way that they didn't just grudgingly take it out, they flippantly, I guess we don't need that. That, no, there's symbolism and meaning and deeper literary stuff in that. That look at all this stuff they're adding in, the other show didn't. And the prophecy stuff is back again, with Viserys reiterating, I had a dream that my son was wearing Aegon the Conqueror's crown, and could that be true or not? Ties in with the White Hart thing, because that's the third prophecy thing, that Aegon was the second one. They're putting that stuff back in as much as possible, and it doesn't really change it too much into high fantasy, because, prophecies are dreams. They're not physical. The white stag isn't like a ghost. A white stag is a real animal. I mean, in real life, it's culturally considered significant. It's a melanistic mutation. They're not albinos. They just have a white coat. But they're real animals. They happen. It's just, do you choose to believe it's an omen or not? That's the subtlety of the Game of Thrones stuff at its best, versus just showing like the Valar or spirits and things from Lord of the Rings coming in, which isn't bad. It's just a different type of story. So not just that they put this in, but that was the culmination of all of it. At the beginning, Ryan Connell saying word for word, the theme of this episode is leaving childhood behind. That was great. Now, I said 7 points. The other ones are quicker than the first one. Point 2 is, I'm going to make a separate video about the topical videos throughout the week. The next 3 or 4 points here are all things I'm going to spin off into topical videos. So let me just rush through this. George R. R. Martin finally got his royal hunt. Talked about it in the White Stag thing that I'm going to remake, that he complained that they didn't have the budget to show a real large-scale royal hunt in season 1 of Game of Thrones, where he said, it's got to be the whole royal court, and a bunch of riders, and lots of hunting dogs to flush them, and you got all of this, like going down a checklist. You can tell this was the wish list episode for George R. R. Martin for the royal hunt. That's great. I'll talk about that in the White Stag thing. Point 3, Jaehaerys' children. That when Viserys goes, oh, what kind of legacy am I having as a Targaryen king? And Lionel Strong goes, well, the old king we saw in the first episode, briefly, Jaehaerys, ruled for almost 60 years of peace and prosperity. He said, well, Jaehaerys, oh, don't feel so bad, sir. Jaehaerys ruled over half a century of peace, but his children drove him crazy, particularly his daughters, so don't feel too bad. And he goes, yeah, I guess. That's a whole thing from Fire and Blood, that this is the prequel era before this one. They're characters in their own right. They're fully fleshed out. Who are Viserys's, when he's saying, oh, your grandfather's children drove him crazy. He's talking about Viserys's father, though he liked his father, Balon. But the daughters, particularly, there was a problem. It was the younger, his aunts were nuts. But Viserys and Daemon's parents, so right before House of the Dragon premiered, down to the wire, I managed to finish the last video on my to-do list from Fire and Blood that I promised I'm going to get this done in the summer, right before House of the Dragon begins. I'm going to get the last Fire and Blood thing done. An analysis video, open to new people, though, going over the lost Targaryen generation, Jaehaerys and Alysanne's children. So if you haven't read the book and don't have time, I gave a pretty good summary, I think, of these are all of their children who we never knew about before the recent book that was in 2018, Fire and Blood. This is the story of who Sarah was and why she drove him crazy, and she was a whore and nuts and betrayed everyone. And the other daughters who were, and even the other sons that they had a tentative relationship with. So, point 2, check out the video on the stag hunt thing, which I'm going to remake. Point 3, already done. I'm going to link it in the description below. Check out the video on Jaehaerys and Alysanne's children, because they prominently brought that up, and it's a big lore thing. I'm happy they tied it in. Point 4 out of 7, also very brief, just, we saw a new dragon for the first time, Sea Smoke, Laenor's dragon. They should have mentioned him by name. They didn't say his name is Sea Smoke, and they do in the viewer's guide, but I guess it didn't work in dialogue for showing the surprise of his reveal. Fair enough. So you'll probably talk to him and refer to him by name next episode. Doesn't matter. Looking at his design, just a design thing, you'll notice that Sea Smoke looks a lot like Daenerys' dragons in terms of body plan, and he's not their ancestor directly. That we think her eggs came from, the eggs that went to Daenerys came from Dreamfire, who we haven't seen yet, but they've mentioned. Point 4 is just, if you haven't already, check out the video I made summarizing interviews they gave about the dragon designs this season. That there's 3 breeds of dragon that they came up with. that they decide, well, they have to be different designs. They can't all just be reusing Drogon's design over and over again like the other show did. And they said there's 3 types or breeds of them. And we don't know what their purpose is yet. Like, is one the warhorse type and the other the endurance type? I haven't explained that yet, but they said there's basically 3 kinds. There's the T-Rex head-shaped ones, and then there's like wolf head-shaped ones like Caraxes. And then in between those 2 extremes, kind of between the 2 designs, are the horse head-shaped ones like Cyrax. So it makes sense that, okay, Sea Smoke is of the same breed as Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion, but it's actually a pretty popular video. I posted it like right before the premiere. It's got 60,000 views as of this episode, so I get, because it's the only real info we have on what the designs going into the dragons, and they haven't even told us all of it yet. So, also linked below is the thing on the dragon breeds, and why does Sea Smoke look like Drogon? He's the same breed of dragon as he is, but he's a different color. He's whitish, smoky gray, Sea Smoke. And I wonder, just as they said, they tease out the designs as we go, that there's going to be 9 on screen in Season 1. So we're up to 3. I'm looking forward to, like, Dreamfire and Sunfire, but Sea Smoke will be with us for a while. He would be through this through, like, the last season. That he doesn't, minor spoilers, he doesn't just, like, die off at the end of Season 1. He's one of the dragons who'll stick around for a while, and we didn't get much of a sense of his personality yet. They said they also had distinct personalities, but again, just his first thing, surprise appearance in a battle. I think they'll work that out as we go. That was nice. So Sea Smoke is point 4. Check out the Dragon Breeds video. Point 5 of 7. Prequel Lannisters introduced. Hooray! And we heard they do this. They said Jefferson Hall is playing both twins, because they're identical twins in this story. And I think they did a really good job of that. They don't wear their hair the same or dress the same, and they have different personalities, because Jason is the older twin. He's raised to be the Lord, and he's cocky and arrogant, whereas Tyland is the one who's actually, he's smart. That's why they put him, he's on the small council. He's intelligent, he's kind of a worrier, but worrying about things that are, the Stepstones War isn't going well. We need to do something, sir. And his brother said, oh, he's boring because he's pragmatic and really intelligent. If you haven't read this stuff, Jason and Tyland are basically the Lannister POV characters for this prequel era. Like, they would get POV chapters if this was a full novel. So, them and 1 or 2 others. But they are, it's not like Rickon Stark, who is in the first episode. He's the father of Cregan Stark, because you see he's already an old man. After the mid-season time skip, will come Cregan Stark, who's the Stark POV, but I don't think he's going to be cast until Season 2. But we're seeing the Lannisters because Tyland is on the small council. There's a reason for him to be in King's Landing. So they differentiated them pretty well. They're having 1 or 2 of those CGI scenes where they show twins sitting next to each other, but Jason isn't in King's Landing a lot. He's in Casterly Rock, Tyland's in Kale, so it doesn't really overlap that much. It shouldn't be too confusing. I like that. I think they worked their mother in. That's a TV-only character, Kira. But that was nice seeing just slowly, and this is more of a general point for the whole episode. Moving on from point 5 to point 6, related to that, is gradually, it's nice they're gradually rounding out the families to more people. Like what Game of Thrones' A Song of Ice and Fire did, where you meet Loras Tyrell at first, you don't meet Marjorie Tyrell, but then gradually you go, this is the rest of the Tyrell family, spiraling outward. Well, this is Marjorie Tyrell, and only later do we meet Olenna Tyrell. Or we meet Theon, but not the other Greyjoys. It spirals out like that. This episode, we'd already met, like, Lionel Strong, but they introduced both of his sons in this. Harwin Breakbones, the strongest man in the 7 Kingdoms, and his younger brother, the Larry Clubfoot, and all Richard III there. And I love that he knows how to play that. It says in the books he's the I complain about this with Game of Thrones, that they're playing the actors' faces without dialogue, but it's a plot point. They say he's the type of guy who sits in the back of the room intently listening to everyone, but not talking because he doesn't want to let slip what he's thinking. He's a spy master. He's really good at that. But they play that really well, that he's sitting there during the gossip and he's not taking part in it. That's how he's described in the books. But they use reaction shots to show he's paying attention to everything they're saying and noting it. This is the right way to do that versus like season 7 Littlefinger. It was all about just the reaction shots. I mean, there's clips of Brian Cogman just geeking out over the wordless reaction shots by Littlefinger, and that doesn't mean it's a story. Lionel will have, not Lionel, Lionel's son, Larry Clubfoot, will have more to do. These are all major characters. So, nice to see the rest of the Strongs. Well, there's one other Strong, but she's a bastard, and there's casting rumors going around, but I'm not going to report more on that until I have confirmation. We haven't heard anything regarding that. But nice to see that set up, and I like this is what the show should be, that royal tent scene of everyone talking politics. It feels like Natalie Dormer's Tudors show, where they're talking about the war and the succession and vying for Rhaenyra's hand, but maybe Aegon should be heir, or just the women talking politics. And does that seem past the Bechdel test? I think it does. They're talking about a man. Well, they're talking about the king's policies, but that we have, building up to, I think we're starting to see the rival factions forming, proto-factions starting to form in this, that it was a nice little nod that the women that are gathered around Alicent Hightower are the Lannister matriarch, Keira Lannister, and I think her name was Jocelyn Redwine. Because it mentions in the books that Alicent's faction, the core members are the Hightowers, the Lannisters, and the Redwines. I don't think that's an accident that they put them in, that they are hardcore Alicent supporters in the coming rivalry. Also, nice that Lady Jocelyn Redwine is snarking at things, and like she is probably a direct ancestor of Olenna Tyrell, who was born Olenna Redwine. She's a Redwine. So that's a nice little nod there. But I like that they were rounding out the families with the Strongs, the Lannisters, and I think there's some other Lannisters we'll see who are side characters. Also, the Velaryons. We got to see his younger brother Vaemond. We got to introduce, okay, there's a time jump, there's teenaged Laenor now. He was in the first episode but didn't have speaking lines. And, okay, he's a dragon. This is due to the aging up the characters. He didn't take part in the war in the books, but he would if he was this old in the TV verse. Showing he's a dragon rider, he's a straight-up guy, he's a stand-up guy, reliable. The Velaryons are powerful and wealthy and would heal the rift in the realm, setting up that, hey, Laenor is actually a pretty good marriage option, political marriage option for Rhaenyra. Maybe we should seriously consider this. Nice to work him in. Oh, the other thing before I move on from point 6, just the fans squeeing at me. I love that when the women are talking at the royal court, they mention the story of Joanna Swan. Straight from the book, it's like a direct quote that, oh, the Triarchy rating on our shipping is getting so bad that Joanna Swan got captured and her uncle, I think maybe it's only in the book, her uncle refuses to pay the ransom, so they sold her to a whorehouse in Lys. But it's this whole thing that, okay, minor spoilers, I don't know if the show's going to do this. They go, well, eventually she worked her way up to become the shadow broker who was practically running the city in all but name. The Shadow Queen of Lys, Joanna Swan. They call her the Black Swan. And just, I wondered if they'd cut that. It was great that they put it in, and I hope we'll see the part of her story where she gets empowered by the Regency, this would be like a season 5 to 6 thing or in a sequel show. But they're name dropping Joanna Swan. That was nice. And point 7 was just reiterating what I already said about Laenor, that yeah, this is the first episode with a significant time skip, as Ryan Condal talked about in the Inside the episode, that there was like a 6-month gap between the first 2 episodes, but it wasn't like you hadn't seen Game of Thrones sometimes a few months past between episodes. They don't really remark on it. They're being very careful about telling us, indicating, because they knew this was One of the big things that kept Dance of the Dragons from being made for a couple of years until they went with the other prequel idea first. It was terrible, so they went back to this. Is HBO was hesitant to have a show with time skips in it, but it's really essential because it's kind of a generational conflict. That it's the rival that you see Alicent and Rhaenyra and the adults that they will turn into, and in turn their children with like Aegon. He will grow up, and the story they're telling it needs time skips. So this was the first one where they recast people on any level. Like, Laenor didn't have dialogue before, now he's a different person. He's adult. And Condell says it's the smallest of the big time jumps. There's like 3 big time jumps. This is the smallest of 3 years. But it's enough that you see Helena had a son, and he's 2, and she's pregnant again with the daughter, as it will turn out, Helena. That some people were even surprised when they said 6 months passed between episodes 1 and 2. It's interesting to see people reacting to these skips between, wow, there's a 3-year time jump. There is a 2-year-old son now. That's nice to see, because that's just an observation, it's nothing. So the big point of this reaction is, wow, themes and symbolism and prophecies. Imagine that. And the other stuff like the hunt, the other things, I'm going to remake the hunt video about the white stag. I love the shots they gave of the Kingswood in this. It really showed how the scale of things wasn't just some guys in a parking lot with some trees in the background. But I don't know how much of that was CGI, because a lot of this was filmed in southern England and in Surrey. They filmed it in the middle of a forest. We have photos of the camp. But there's this giant primeval forest in the Stormlands. And there's like the preview chapters from from Winds of Winter talk about someone traveling through the Rainwood, not the Kingswood, but they're the same forest, just separated by a chain of mountains. And just, this is primeval forest where people have never been. That this is old growth forest. They kept it that way so they could have deer to hunt. They set aside forest for royal deer hunts and stuff, and just, it's really pure wilderness in there, and it's beautiful. I'll talk about that more in the hunt video. So, other videos to check out after this one I'm going to do is topical ones. I'm going to do the hunt video, then some stuff about the stepstones, but videos I already have done right now, you should check out. Linked in the comments below are the one on Jaehaerys and Alysanne's children, how they drove him close to madness, and we saw Sea Smoke. He's the same breed of dragon as Drogon was. So check out the 3 breeds of dragon video, also linked below. And throughout the week, I'll be doing more topical stuff on this. And I am playing catch-up because holiday weekend meant I was out doing stuff, because it's Labor Day weekend in the United States at the beach. And then The Lord of the Rings dropped, not 1 but 2 episodes, which I do intend to cover. I've already recorded my reactions for those. It's just I want to get this done first. I'll post those other reactions by like Tuesday, or if not earlier, and I'm playing catch-up here, but barring any other giant rival fantasy show premieres, I'm starting to catch up on everything. So if you haven't, please like and subscribe. I'm going to keep covering this.